This is the Kokomo Post Podcast. This is your number one source for all things Kokomo.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Kokomo Post Podcast. My name is Pam Downing. I'm here with my co-host, Erin Larison, and we are thrilled to welcome you to today's episode. I really think we are in for some rich conversation with our guest, Jeff Newton. But before we formally introduce you to Jeff, we want to say thank you for joining us, and a special thank you if this is your first time joining us for this newly reformatted version of the Kokomo Post Podcast.
Yeah, I mean, this is really our chance to sit down with leaders in the community, learn from them, and really, I mean, we want to highlight and lift up people who are taking their blood, sweat, and tears to continue to build a stronger, better Kokomo. And we get the pleasure of sitting in these seats and learning from them. And hopefully you guys who are listening and watching at home are also taking away some really actionable things about how to create change. And I think we're really going to learn a lot from our guests today.
I agree.
Me too. So we will get into it. We're thrilled to have Jeff Newton here with us. He is the executive director of Kokomo Urban Outreach. If you do not know this gentleman sitting next to me, he's been a pastor for close to 40 years. He was the pastor at Hillsdale, or is still the pastor at Hillsdale United Methodist Church. He's an advocate for the material poor. He has extensive experience working with those in poverty. He really works at raising awareness now for the UP programs, which we're going to get into and talk about a lot more. He also raises funds, leads regional workshops on the culture of poverty and the grind, and that's helping children develop resiliency. So, Jeff Newton, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you both for having me here today. I'm very excited to be here and with the Kokomo Post and to be just joining you all.
Yeah. You know, before you came this morning, Jeff, I told Erin, I know a lot about what Jeff does, but I don't know a lot about who Jeff is. So I'm thrilled to hear more about your story and learn about you. So that's our first question. I'd love to know. Tell us about yourself. Where are you from? How did you get here to Kokomo? And how was this passion to help people cultivated in your life?
So I was born in Kokomo. I went to the real Kokomo High School, which is just a block away from here.
The real Kokomo High School.
Okay, this is the Hayworth Kokomo. All right.
Yeah, it's just right there.
See what's happening.
Yeah. and so then I became a pastor, and I moved around a little bit. And then I felt like I was supposed to come back to Kokomo. It was about 2004, 2005.
Okay.
And the reason I was wanting to come back is because I know the culture.
Yeah.
I had some networking already. I already knew some people. And I wanted to come back and meet the needs of people that maybe are materially struggling. And so I came back to Kokomo in 2005.
Okay.
And I pastored at Hillsdale from 1990 to 1995. So this is my second time at Hillsdale. So Take two. Hopefully this time is better. I have 3 adult sons. They're all married, and I have grandkids and all that good stuff. 7 grandkids come
Wow.
soon. And so I grew up here. And I came back. And so when I came back, I was going to start Kokomo Urban Outreach, and I wasn't real sure what that was going to look like. And so being a pastor, I would sit with people in different neighborhoods and say, hey, what do you need? And whatever they needed, we tried to provide it.
Yeah.
So we started at Garden Square. We have a building right across from Garden Square. I was actually the pastor there at Trinity United Methodist for a long time until it closed. And we were having kids from the neighborhood come over. We were eating dinner, providing meals for kids on Sunday night. We were hearing that some kids were not eating much on the weekend because it was during the recession, and so people didn't have jobs. It was difficult. And then we had open food pantries, and then we did buddy bags. You've heard of those,
Yep,
I'm sure.
absolutely.
Oh yeah.
So at the beginning, we were having so many kids coming over, and people heard that their kids were struggling with food, and so they were bringing over food to us, and we didn't know what to do with them, with the food. So we bagged it up every Sunday night, gave it to a kid, and I didn't know the kid's name, so I'd say, hey, buddy, don't forget your bag. Hey, buddy, don't forget your bag. So the kids started calling them buddy bags. And then when we took them into the school, we just kept that name.
I love that.
And so then we were doing that for like a period of time, and everything was going great. We were supported by churches, we were supported by businesses and individuals. Things were going very well, and so that's kind of where I am. I kind of came through there. I've been a pastor all the time. There's never been a time I took 2 or 3 years off as a pastor when we made a change, so I could go to churches and explain the change. And then I've been doing both things all along. So it's been a great privilege to be back in Kokomo and to reconnect with friends that I have had when I was in school and things like that.
I love it.
Wow.
I love it. And I moved to town just before that. So I came in 2004. So I feel like I've gotten to sort of see the rise and the change and the community reaction to things. And I think, you teed it up well. There's been a big shift in Kokomo Urban Outreach, and that's a lot of what we'd like to center today's discussion on. Is really you made a conscious decision, or we'd love to hear more about this. You sort of shifted directions for Urban Outreach.
We did. After 10 years of having food pantries and meals and things, I began to see the older children of the families we were helping come in with their babies and need the same things their parents needed. So then I began to ask myself, are we really doing anything to make a change in Kokomo? Is it really making a difference? We were helping people get through poverty, but not out of poverty.
Okay.
And being a pastor, I prayed. And in my prayer time, I was on like a cruise ship. And a cruise ship has everything on it. And so there would be people down in the water struggling to keep their head above the water. And I would yell down and say, hey, what do you need? They'd say, food. We'd throw them food. I'd throw them food. And say, hey, the next person, hey, what do you need? Gasoline, give them gasoline. Hey, what do you need? Christmas presents. Whatever they needed, we threw it to them. And so in my prayer time, I was led to Matthew 25, which if you're not a Bible scholar, it's okay. Jesus says, feed the hungry and clothe the naked and all that. And we were doing all those things. And so I said, that's what we're doing. Why doesn't it feel right anymore? And then I found a book called Toxic Charity, and we did a book study. With Bridges Outreach, actually, Travis and myself, we just invited the community through Facebook to come to a book study. We didn't know how many was going to come. We were in a restaurant downtown, and we had 50 people come.
Wow.
And we discussed the book in 2 sessions. So that's when we begin to think about a change. And then I was praying again because I was still trying to figure it all out. So I was praying again, and this time when I was praying, I was back on the cruise ship, and I had read in that same scripture, Matthew 25, where Jesus said, "Will you do it to the least of these? You do it to me." And so the first person I yelled down to, hey, what do you need? The person looked up, and I could see the face of Jesus, and I knew then I would never throw Jesus anything. I would try to pull Jesus out.
What a powerful image.
So that's what we began to do. We began to make the switch. We realized there's a lot of safety net in Kokomo. There's a lot of great organizations that have food pantries, and you can eat at the rescue mission, any meal you want, lunch and dinner. So there's places to get food. And so we decided we were going to revamp the outreach to help to alleviate poverty and not get people through poverty. We were a fairly large organization, so it took like 4 years to make the transition. It's like
I mean, where does that start? Where's your first conversation when you start? Is it your staff team? Is there a board? I mean, where do you begin that conversation to say, hey, I don't think what we're doing is right anymore?
I start with the board. The president of the board is Joel Larison. We might know him.
I know him.
So he helped train us through the maneuver through it as a board and our staff.
And what I'm just so curious, to be a fly on the wall. Was that initial conversation when you came to the board and said, "Hey, here's an idea"? How was that received?
It was received really well because that's what we really want to do, is alleviate poverty and not keep it going.
Yeah.
And we were keeping
Yeah.
it going, and we were really there are times I believe that we were hurting people by giving them so many things that they were losing self-respect, they didn't have dignity, things like that. And so it was not a hard it was not a difficult thing for the board to receive.
Okay.
It was pretty easy.
Great.
And so, and then I went to Main Street Cafe, which is at the time Sandra Young was there. And I met with 187 different community leaders.
Wow.
So that was my office for about 3 weeks. And so I just scheduled the appointments, and they just came to the cafe, and I bought them coffee. I drank a lot of coffee. And I explained what we're going to do. And they all thought it was a great idea. I didn't have any pushback from any community leader.
Wow. So there's that. We're going to wrap up the podcast. Have a good idea. Start it. Do it for 10 years. Make a pivot, and there's never any pushback.
Wow.
We had some pushback from some volunteers and things like that.
Yeah.
But what we decided to do was, if we're going to alleviate poverty, we need to start with children, and we need to put in their heads that in order to get money, you have to work. And so that's what we started doing. So we started with boys. We had a guy on our staff, and I asked him, if you could do anything in the world, what would you do? And he said, I would take boys off the street and teach them how to work.
Wow.
And so that's what we did.
Wow.
So we started with boys, taking them off the street. A lot of them were troubled. We showed them how to work. They made money because we paid them. And then we added girls in February, just a few months later. So we added girls. So we had a girls program and a boys program. And everybody was working. And then we were having little boys. We're trying from an apartment. The apartment's across the street, Garden Square. It's across the street from where we are. The little boys were sneaking on the buses. And they were saying, hey, we were pulling them off. And they said, we want to go. I said, well, you have to be, the one kid said, how old do you have to be on here? And I said, 10. I said, how old are you? And he said, I'm 9.5.
Oh, yeah.
His friend said, no, he's not. He's only 7. And so we got talking with Corrine Dunn, who is one of our staff members, great staff member. He's the glue that holds everything together. We got talking, and we said, why don't we bring the little boys on?
Yeah.
So we started something called Mini Man Up. And in that, they get a meal. So there's a meal involved in working and learning and that kind of thing. But we were only 4 weeks in, and this little girl was sitting on the curb across the street. And she asked Corrine, she said, Corrine, can I come in? My brother gets to eat dinner tonight, and I don't. So Corrine comes rushing in, says, we have to let this little girl in tonight. And I said, Corrine, we can't, because her mom won't know where she's at. Her mom comes looking for her. We're in trouble.
Sure, yeah.
So he took a plate of food out to her. She ate on the curb. And the next week we had girls. So it's not Mini Man Up anymore. It's Mini Up. And since the pandemic, we've combined the girls and the boys together. And so now it's just called Up. So it's Up is unlimited potential. We believe every kid has unlimited potential.
Oh, yeah.
I got a shirt on that says that.
You do. I do. I should have worn mine. I have one too. I should have worn it. So that's kind of where we've been. So we work with children 3 years old to 18.
Gosh.
Before the pandemic, we had 250 kids.
Wow.
Now we have about 150.
Okay.
So we're still rebuilding from the COVID. We just brought the little kids back. They were gone for 18 months, and they just came back about 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
So they've been gone for a long time. So that's kind of how we made this pivot. It was complicated to unravel the food and close all that down, but we didn't do it overnight. It was a period of time, and we just gradually let it go.
Okay.
And you said off camera before we started, you said this was a decision that was complicated but not hard.
It wasn't hard. It wasn't a hard decision to make.
Yes.
Because we knew that we weren't really helping people come out of poverty. We were enabling them to stay in it in some respects. I'm not saying that's completely true, but that in some respects.
Sure.
So that wasn't hard to make that decision, but it's complicated to unravel a cruise ship, basically.
Yeah.
And make a big turn. Took a while.
Now, I'm curious, from those who had been receiving services before, was there pushback? Because there's certainly in the UP program, there's equity that's coming through this. So was there some pushback?
There was a little bit, but again, we gave lots of time. Mm-hmm. And so there was some, that were upset because we closed the food. We had a great food pantry. We had eggs and cheese and milk every time.
Yeah.
So there was some pushback, and then we also lost funding.
Okay.
So I made it much. So when the buddy bags were, we just lost the funding for the buddy bags. Mm-hmm. The funder decided not to fund anymore, and so that caused a little panic too, because that was abruptly stopped.
Yeah.
Because of that. Mm. And so we progressed forward though.
Yeah. I distinctly remember, and this is maybe during sort of that transition, seeing that you guys were doing, rather than a traditional food pantry, it was a sort of a Crockpot cooking, which I found really amazing. I think you had gotten donated Crockpots, and if folks could come in and then walked through a room, got the supplies to learn to make something in a slow cooker.
Yeah.
They made 7 recipes. They actually opened the cans and made it right there and put it in baggies and then took it home. And again,
Smart.
the same funds we got the buddy bags from also funded that. Mm-hmm. So we lost all of that.
Man, okay.
So now, though, we're teaching kids how to cook.
Yeah.
And that's pretty exciting.
So where do you go from there? Where's your head when you, because, as you know, I think I've said it every episode. I was in nonprofit for a while. I like to talk about that and about being from upstate New York. They're my favorite things. So point of pride on both. But, so where are you? You lose funding for something. I mean, where's your head in sort of those moments? How do you continue? You've lost, I'm assuming, a very large amount of funding for these buddy bags. So then what? Where are you in that?
It was sad. And so, but we knew we didn't have any option. So, but then it kind of played into what we were trying to do anyway. So, and then some other groups in Kokomo picked it up. So, so it was a natural break for us. And so we do nothing with food now, except we do provide a meal for the little kids on Tuesday night.
Sure.
But other than that, we are out of the food business. So we're not having to have a warehouse with thousands of pounds of food and all that money that we were spending on that. Not all of it, because we had funders, but a lot of that was diverted to kids, paying kids. So the kids make money.
Yeah.
So every week a kid can make money, and that helps their family a lot. We had a kid. His name was Jonah. When he was 13, he told me, "I'm going to save up and buy a car." And I said, "Oh, okay, you're 13. We'll see."
Sure.
And so you accumulate points. Every point's worth $1. And so he kept accumulating points. He didn't ever take any money out. You could take money out through gift cards. So you can request a gift card and you can get whatever you have.
Yeah, yeah.
And so one time he asked for a $100 gift card. I said, "Wait, John, what are you doing? You said you're saving for a car." He goes, "I know, but my mom works at a restaurant in town and she's there on her feet all day. And she takes care of my sister and myself really well. And she needs a new pair of shoes real bad. So I'm going to buy her a pair of shoes." And so he bought the shoes. But then when he turned 17, he pulls up in a car that he purchased from saving his points in the upper.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Such an incredible story.
What a difference. And man, I feel like there's so much to unpack in that. I mean, and I do want to sort of wrap up that previous question about where are you when you lose funding. I feel like what I heard in that, right, is what a human thing it would have been to, frustration and sadness. And
right.
What I feel like, and correct me if I'm connecting dots that are not there, but what I hear in that is we lost funding, and also at the same time, it served us to get where we needed to go.
Exactly.
Right. And so talk to us about where does that sort of mindset come from?
It comes from the resiliency thing that I teach. And so you have to be resilient. And if you can't be resilient, then you're always going to fall backwards or you're going to fail. And so if you're not resilient, especially in a nonprofit, if you're not resilient, if you can't move fast, then you're going to fall behind. And then you're going to be super stressed. So if you're able to go with the flow and just go where the water leads you and just stay in the stream, then you're going to feel a lot better, and things will work out. Probably, I'm not saying everything works out perfectly, it doesn't. But at the same time, if you're trying to do what you're supposed to do and you're going that direction, and then things start falling into place that you weren't expecting, that makes it much easier to take hold of, especially if it's what your goals are headed toward.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
I'd love to ask, and just getting a sense of kind of your leadership style. I have a good guess at how you'll answer this question, but I'm curious to know, you spent a decade kind of cultivating and building, and leading Kokomo Urban Outreach in one way. Then you made this pivot, which was significant and strategic with the time. There were some things that were a quick shift, but I really love this cruise ship analogy on so many levels, because some of the things you've already mentioned, but thinking of, turning a cruise ship around takes time. It's not a speedboat. It's not a jet ski. It's a slow shift. But I'd love to talk about success. And I know the word success carries some weight for nonprofit, and coming from a faith perspective and thinking of much of what you do, perhaps as ministry. How do you gauge what success looks like, and how is that different now than it was 5 years ago?
5 years ago, before we made the change, we gauged our success by how many people were coming through the food pantry. And so the more we had, the more successful we were.
Sure.
Yeah.
But at our board meeting, we said there was a discussion about that.
Okay.
And and we decided that if you're going to be successful in a food pantry, the numbers should be going down.
Yeah.
And when you're going up, it just means there's more people in need, or more people that get free food.
Yeah.
And maybe, get free food. We'll just leave it there. And then at the same time, we're not really making an impact. So the needle isn't moving to alleviate poverty at all when you're just giving things away. Now, there's times where you have to give things away. I'm not saying we never give anything away. We generally don't give anything away. But like when everything was shut down during COVID, we cooked meals and delivered to every kid in our program's house because we knew they wouldn't have school lunches, and that didn't cost them anything.
Right.
And so we did, in a time of crisis, according to the Toxic Charity, when there's a crisis, a tornado or a hurricane or COVID, then you do what you need to do to meet needs. But generally speaking, you want to help people become self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And have some dignity along the way.
Yeah.
And so for you now, how do you gauge success today?
So the way we gauge success today is by the stories that come out of the program, especially the stories of kids that were way far behind in school and they've caught up. For example, last year we had a learning center just for the 1 year because a lot of kids received a laptop on March 18th. And they had never had one before, and there was a paper in there that told them how to get on. So I took them home, and they didn't have internet at home. Some people didn't have electricity. There were kids living in cars. They didn't do anything, but they all got passed on. So we found those kids in our program, and we put them in a learning center, and we got them caught up. So they did remote school, and then we caught them up in the times that they should be in art and music and those kind of things. They didn't get to do that online, so we did that with us, but we also was able to catch them up. So we had so we had kids that were skipping 3 reading levels, 3 grade levels in 1 year. So we got a lot of kids caught up. We don't have that anymore. Everybody went back to school. Yeah. So that's what we were able to do that very quickly. We decided on July 15th that on July 30th we'd be open.
Wow.
So we just flip the switch real fast.
Yeah. Man. So there's so many questions there too. I mean, where does that come from, right? Because I feel like the natural human desire is for comfort and for ease, like people are selfish and lazy. And in general, we like this sort of keep going. We like momentum. We like, so what does it take to mobilize people to nope, we're going to change. We're going to be uncomfortable. We're going to do something new, and we're going to do it March or July 15th. By July 30th, we're going to do it. How do you lead people to that?
Our staff is great, and they're used to me because we make changes all the time. So nothing's ever the same for very long, it seems like. And so, and it's a tornado hit us, and different things happen.
Yes.
And so you have to be very flexible, and they are flexible. Our staff is very flexible, and so they just go with it, and they listen, and they trust me. And I'm kind of low key, so I like to stay this is kind of unusual for me to be out like this. I like to stay in the background and push the staff forward. So they're very loyal, and they believe, they trust me. And so when I say, this is what we need to do next, there's questions, of course. Sure. How's it going to work, and logistics and things. But I usually have it all worked out. And so we are able to move forward and move fast.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I'm hearing just the idea of being nimble.
Very nimble.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's hard for some nonprofits, especially if you're grant funded and different things.
Sure.
You have to go back to the grantors and things like that.
So I think this could be said about your staff as well, but as people, and I want to know specifically about you, as someone who has dedicated your life's work to helping other people. A couple questions. Why do you do that? And at what point in your life did you discover that about yourself and kind of take that step to say, this is what I want to do. I want my life to serve others.
That's a good question. Probably most of my life. My family is from Kokomo, and they've been givers, and they own businesses in town, Kokomo Glass Shop, different places around town. They own businesses, and they were always generous. But when I went to college, I went as my major was in University of Indianapolis.
Okay.
In nonprofit leadership and youth, specifically youth nonprofit. And then I became a pastor. But then before that, I became a restaurant manager, and I was working with a lot of teenagers. I was only 22, and I was the manager of this big restaurant. And so I was working with teenagers in there a lot. And then I felt called to ministry, so I did that. And then I was in a larger church in Northwest Indiana near Chicago, and I felt called to come back to Kokomo to see what we could do here. And so that's how it all played out. But it was just a matter of one thing after another, just kind of a progression that started when I was young, very young.
Yeah, and so I hear themes of having a kind of a special spot in your heart for young people. And I see it in some of the programming that you've been a part of creating, with the UP programs standing for Unlimited Potential. Why? I guess my question is why do you believe that? And what about young people makes you want to keep going and still, I just see this steadfast faith in general. And also this just you are a cheerleader for the young people in our community, despite some of the complications, because, as a whole, middle schoolers, high schoolers sometimes get a bad rap from adults. Perhaps I could even go so far as to say, especially these days, as things are changing so much. And, I'm in my mid-30s, and the experience that a kid and teenager has today is wildly different from my experience 20 some odd years ago. So that was a lot to say. You seem to see something in these young people. What do you see, and why?
What I see in them, is things that they don't see in them. And so that's why we say they have unlimited potential. I also, when I speak to groups, I talk about making the invisible visible. So when you put a kid in a life skill class with, say, woodshop, and so they're accelerating in that, oh, that's something you're good at. And so it's building self-esteem too, or cooking, or whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
When we see somebody that has the talent or the ability to do that, they say, look what you could do. And this is what you could make. This is how much you could make if you go to school. And you were asked earlier, how do we measure success? And one of the big ways we measure success is what happens to a kid when they age out or they graduate from high school.
Okay.
And so we tell them they have 3 options. You either go to school or trade school, college or trade school. You go to the military or you go to work. And those are your only 3 options. There's no other options. There's no option to sit around and collect a check from the government, nothing like that. So you have to do something. And so our success rate for kids coming out of the program is about 90% of them doing one of those 3 things.
That's remarkable.
It is remarkable. And so like this year we had 3 kids that graduated. 2 are at Ivy Tech, 1 in welding, 1 in heating and air conditioning. And the other one is saving money to go to he wants to do music engineering. There's a school in Indianapolis, but there's no financial aid for that. So he has to raise the money. So he's working right now and saving the money so he can go to school.
Wow.
Very
cool. Very cool. So
I want to counter. Just in. Oh no. I mean, I just want like a ding in the top right corner of like, how many times do you and I say, wow? When
the wow counter.
I mean, I'm very just fascinated by your demeanor is at once, very sort of understated and soft-spoken, but also very determined, which I feel like we don't often see here. We see people who are sitting in the seat who are over the top, determined, hell-bent on, and I feel like you have that, and yet at the same time have this sort of understated. I don't know. It's just very interesting to sit in the seat because you have such a demeanor of both of those 2 things at the same time.
So, again, I don't want to lead your answer. I think I may know the answer to this question, but I'd love to kind of get nitty gritty on Kokomo.
Yeah.
You're a Kokomo kid yourself. So that gives some context to why Kokomo, but especially this is like kind of a church denomination sidebar, but as a pastor in the United Methodist Church, I grew up in United Methodist churches. It's kind of rare for you to be in one community for so long. It is.
It is.
And so, I mean, that's the kind of like church kid sidebar. So talk to us about Kokomo. Why Kokomo?
But also, how did you get to stay here for this long? I truly hadn't thought about this in that the United Methodist pastors I've seen have sort of it seems like a very 3-year shelf life of moving.
That's the way I was doing before I came back to Kokomo.
Okay.
But what happened was I'm not a full-time pastor.
Oh,
so only full-time pastors have to move around.
Sure.
So I'm a part-time pastor, so I'm able to stay put.
I like it.
Okay.
And actually, I'm assigned before I went to Hillsdale. I was just helping them out. Basically, I'm just helping them out right now. But I was assigned by our leaders to be a missionary to Kokomo. That was my title.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I'd love to hear you talk more about Kokomo. Are there specific things about Kokomo that you felt a calling to come back? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Some of that I assume is because this is home.
Yep. But
there's got to be more.
17 or so years that you've been here, 16, 17 years, does this community look different? And
we've been through some stuff in those 17 years in particular.
And before. And there's lots of baggage from before that we've brought in. So I'd love to see, and I think this is maybe where you were going, is what have you seen? How have you seen Kokomo change?
I've seen Kokomo change in amazing ways. When I was growing up in Kokomo, growing up in Kokomo, and I was going to the high school downtown, we had a lot of racial riots. And I was going home a lot at lunchtime. But that's all calmed down. And so while there's still tension, it's not as violent as it used to be. That's a good thing. And since I've been back to Kokomo, what I've seen happen is the culture and the art and the things to do has grown tremendously. When I was a kid growing up, we basically had the parks, and I would wade in the creek at Highland Park.
Yep.
And we would go to what's Kokomo Beach was at that time called the Seashore. That's it, basically. The parks and the pool. Today there's ball games and basketball and baseball and ice skates and all kinds of things you can do that people in the past would say, even when I came back in 2005, we did a needs assessment. One of the needs assessments, there's nothing for kids to do. And then you can't say that today.
Right. Yeah.
Very
you
much
can't
agree.
say that today.
And the whole city looks fresher, cleaner, new buildings, all kinds of things. It's just a whole different place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a whole different place. So
I'm curious, as you've continued to sort of evolve and grow Urban Outreach, I mean, have you seen a similar evolution in, I guess, not just in the amenities of Kokomo, but in sort of the spirit and the heart of Kokomo? What are you seeing in sort of the spirit of the people of Kokomo, the community of Kokomo?
Kokomo is extremely generous, especially in times of trouble, but all the time. So it's not super difficult to raise funds if people believe in what you're doing.
Sure.
It's extremely generous. It's volunteers. We have probably more volunteers than we could use right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
This is because, it's just a lot of volunteers. Some people want to help. They want to volunteer. They want to do things. Churches want to come and help us do things. And so I see this generosity that's really large. It's really big. And it's been kind of amazing. I'm also seeing that with some new nonprofits and some new programs, that people that are really on the edge, like addiction and things like that, are being addressed on a deeper level than ever before, ever before. So there's a lot of good things happening.
Yeah.
There's a good safety net, and that's one of the reasons why it wasn't hard to make the transition, because there's already a great safety net in place for those that really need it.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't hard. It was just complicated, like I said before, to unravel everything.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
I love that. So I'm hearing we're on the right track. We're continuing to evolve, more to go, right? And we talk about that a lot here, is that we're lifting up stories of goodness and know at the same time that there's more to do.
Yeah. Right.
And so for folks, it sounds like you're doing well on volunteers. How can people help support this work in a really tangible way for you beyond, it was, I think when you guys were doing food pantries, it was very easy and quick and, almost thoughtless to go to, wherever and bring you canned food. What do you need now?
We need today, of course, we wasn't money, but besides that, there are some things that we need periodically. If you check our website, which we have a great website group that takes care of our website. I think Larry's and Median right here.
I heard about them.
You heard about them. And so we occasionally post some things on there or on our Facebook page. They also help us with our Facebook page. So we're really doing well.
That was not a shameless plug, I promise.
And so we post things like that as we need things. One of the things that happens, which is good, is whenever I ask for something on Facebook, it comes in tons.
Oh, wow.
So I have to be careful what I ask for, because people are very generous. So if I need some bars of soap, it's not just, we probably need 100 bars of soap, but we're getting 500 bars of soap.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or whatever. So
I distinctly remember this when there were tornadoes, and I was at the Y. We said, well, let's put together some shower kits for folks, because we had opened up the showers at the Y to folks who needed them and were displaced. And we said, let's put together some shower kits. And overnight, we have these pictures of, hundreds and hundreds of mini shower things, trying to put them in Ziplocs with I mean, we found homes for them all eventually, but it was amazing. It was like a Facebook post, because I think in some cases
that's how generous Kokomo is.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate it. And whenever we ask for something, we really need it. So even if we have more than we need, we'll eventually get to it and use it.
Very cool.
So many questions, so many more. I mean, I feel like we could talk to you for 3 more hours.
Yeah, I agree. And there's
this is
several
part
different parts, like several different paths we could go down. Jeff, I'd love, with your experience and your wisdom, because I'd love to even hear you talk more about some of this specialty training that you do. Someone who is watching or listening, who is feeling like the thing that they're doing right now needs to change. And maybe they're just learning about the changes that they need to make, or maybe they just kind of know in their knower the change that needs to happen. What advice could you give? Or from your experience, what would you say to that person?
The number one thing, if you're going to be working with people that are materially poor, because everybody has unlimited potential and everybody has invisible gifts. We try to find those. But the only way you're really going to help somebody on the long term is to get to know them. Yeah. That's the big thing. And so when churches call me to come and figure out what's wrong with their food pantry or this or that or the other thing, we always start with so how do you know your guests? How do you know the people that's coming through? Yeah. What do you know about them? And most of the time, because it's so much easier to throw something to somebody, it's so much easier. Yeah. Because when you start to get to know people, it gets messy and you get to learn things you don't really want to know. But the only way change is going to come is when you are working with the person, you get to know them and they get to know you. And then what happens is you are changed as well. And so when I do these workshops and things like that, we do a whole thing of culture of poverty and what it looks like to be poor. And then we move into how's the best way to help without hurting people. Those kind of things. And so I do that. I'm going to go into Avon in a couple of weeks, Indiana. I've been all over the Midwest.
Wow. And where do you do these workshops? Can people who are watching, listening, can they join in?
Some of them, yes. Some of them, no. Okay. Some of them are committees in churches that probably wouldn't want anybody else there. But others are more open. I do big conferences. And so when those big conferences come, you could Zoom in or it's streamed. So you can see me there. Can I announce something I'm kind of excited about?
Yes, please.
This is all right. So we have a staff guy named Kareem Dunn.
Yes.
We are complete opposites. He's a young African-American that grew up on the streets, that been in prison, and doesn't have a high school education. And then I have the opposite. And so we are beginning to do something we call way down deep conversations. And so we'll come to your place, conference or whatever, church, whatever. We're going to the Kiwanis Club in a couple weeks. And we will talk about topics like it could be racism, it could be sexism, it could be from different perspectives. Wow. So we will talk in different perspectives, and then we're also writing a book, and we're getting ready to do a podcast. So we're trying to get it all out there. And then try to put it together in a book form after we've done a few. So he calls it Way Down Deep Conversations. Way Down Deep Conversations. And so we'll set BW3s and I'll put my tape recorder on and we just talk. And the conversation goes wherever it goes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I haven't checked with my co-host, but I'd love to invite you and Kareem back. Yes. To have one of these conversations as it applies to Kokomo. Yes. And we'll do a lot more talking about what that could look like, but well, congratulations. That's
amazing. So we're very excited.
Well, we're going to be watching and tracking and listening and learning and cheering you on because what a valuable
lifting that up too on our platform. How can we get our listeners and our viewers to continue and engage in those conversations and in that learning? Wow.
What value. So exciting.
That is exciting. We do mentoring. We mentor each other. So I'm teaching him how to be more professional, how to interact that kind of way. I'm learning what the street language is. I don't speak street, but I understand street. So when kids are talking, they're surprised I'm able to jump in the conversation. I don't use the. It sounds kind of weird from a white old man to talk street, but I understand it.
Yeah.
And so we are crossing cultures, and we're sharing cultures with each other that neither one of us knew about.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this so much.
Well, and this to me, I see such value and unlimited potential. I can't wait to see where this goes and all the people that will benefit. But this, to me, goes back to what you said about getting to know people.
Yep. Well, and there's a cost, I mean, to that too, right? And so I think sometimes the, in your old model, there was, and please hear this, I'm not cheapening any of the donations and the way people had supported you previously.
Yes, exactly.
But there's, and I know that was in its own way incredibly helpful for people and for you, and I know you were very grateful for it. But there's an ease in dropping off a pallet of canned food, and there's a different kind of cost to allowing people to get to know you and spending your time to truly know them and have them be seen and to sort of build in and unlock potential. And it's not a monetary cost, but it's a time cost.
Yes.
It's a vulnerability cost.
Right.
Frustration cost.
Yeah.
Because people don't do what you want them to do.
This is a conversation we have frequently at our office.
Well, Jeff, I had the identical conversation with Erin the other day, yesterday, as a matter of fact. And we talked to another leader in the community who taught me such a great lesson about that, because that's real. When you get to know someone and when you give of yourself in a certain way, emotionally, or you're having that relationship and you value them and you love them, and they come to you and ask for advice, or you give them some coaching and they don't take it. That is, it can be frustrating, and there is a cost to that. And her words, what is this, Kalina who said this? It was just so wise, or it may have been Coach Tosh.
Could have been Latasha, yeah.
But her words were so wise of like, you bring your gifts to the table in that moment, in that conversation. And who knows, maybe, but I wanted to just diatribe a little bit on that, because I know exactly what you're describing. And that frustration is not, to be discounted, but also she gave us that reminder of like, well, you never know. You never know.
You never know. That's true.
Yeah.
How do you, for those listening or for those sitting at this table right now, hypothetically, how do you overcome that? How do you, because you've spent your life giving to people, and I'm sure they're frustrated. How do you overcome that moment of, but I am here and I am working with you and I can tell you where this is headed, where you're going to continue? How do you overcome that bit of...
It's not easy to overcome, but it all goes to listening and trying to understand where the person's coming from. And a lot of times we don't have a clue where they're coming from, and then we get frustrated when they don't receive the things that we want to give them. Can I give I'm going to give a quick example.
Yes.
We had a woman in a food pantry, a volunteer, and she saw a guest coming through with duct taped shoes. So she sized her up just by eyeballing her, and she went out and bought her a new pair of shoes. So she gave it to her. The next time she saw her, she gave it to her. And then the next day, she saw those same shoes for sale on Facebook Marketplace.
Sure.
She was livid, the giver. So next time she saw her, she said, "Why did you sell my shoes that I gave to you?" And she said, "I needed gas money to go to work because it's more important for me to have a place to live than it is to have a good pair of shoes."
Yeah.
And then and then she proceeded to tell the giver, she said, "I appreciate you thinking of me, but you didn't ask me what I needed.
Yeah.
You just assumed that you knew what I needed, and giving me a pair of shoes is not what I needed. I needed gasoline money."
Oh, that's hitting me.
So you don't know what the circumstances
right.
is behind them not doing what you want them to do.
Yes.
Sometimes it could be a domestic violence, and they can't because they'd be hurt, or sometimes they could lose their job, or they could lose their apartment, or they don't want anybody to know where they're at, things like that.
Right. And that it's so applicable to so many parts of life, you know, taking the time to listen and understand, and what a difference that can make. Wow. Because that example you just gave, I have no doubts the intentions of the giver were kind.
Yeah.
They had good intentions.
They had great intentions.
Yeah.
And they became very frustrated when the person didn't use it the way they thought they should use.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Jeff. That personally, that is a valuable lesson for me that I needed to hear and continue to learn in my life, you know, as a giver and the receiver at times.
Absolutely. And just one more example of how this table is cheaper than therapy. So high five. Oh my goodness. Well, Jeff, as we kind of land the plane, we have 2 questions that we ask every guest who we get to spend time with. Both equally hard hitting.
That's right.
And so the first one, I guess I will ask. So if for whatever reason you only get one more meal in Kokomo, because we are food lovers, Pam and I are both foodies.
Yeah.
If you only get one more Kokomo meal, what would your last Kokomo meal be?
That's a good question. I think I would go to. I love steak.
Okay.
So I'd probably go to somewhere like, but I'd probably the Marble or.
Okay. Good answer.
So I love steak, and that's where I'd go to get my last meal.
Okay. Ooh. What do you like with your steak? You a steak and potatoes guy?
Yes.
Okay. A baked potato?
French fries.
Ooh. Excellent answer.
There. Ooh, don't sleep on those. Those are wonderful.
Okay.
So, that's where I'd go.
Good
answer. Okay. And now I can't wait to hear your answer.
Much less hard hitting. This easy question that Pam rounds it out with.
So, Jeff, for you, what does a stronger, better Kokomo look like?
I would say a stronger, better Kokomo would be a community where everyone is valued, no matter what their opinions are, no matter their skin color, no matter their age. I envision a Kokomo where every child is valued, every child has the same as opportunities, and every child. Here's what I really wish could happen. It can't. I wish that some children could have a do-over.
Yeah.
That's it. A better Kokomo would be more diverse. Would be embracing love, basically.
Jeff, we can feel your heart for this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another counter. Wow. Just.
Yeah. Well, let me wrap up. Please don't apologize.
Don't apologize.
I want to acknowledge you for your leadership, for your faithfulness, for your love of the community that we see tangibly through your love of people, and your passion for people, and specifically young people. And I want to just express such an appreciation and a respect and admiration for being a champion. You know, you describe some of these children. You have done it so well. The 2 words, unlimited potential, represent so much. And thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. We're gonna keep eyes on you as you continue to lead. We'll keep tabs on you to see what's next, what's to come. And you've already given some cool announcements already today. So Jeff Newton, Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can't wait to have you back with Corrine.
Yep.
And thank you for joining us, Kokomo, for another, what I would call a very special edition of the Kokomo Post Podcast. Please join us in this conversation. We'd love to invite you in, hear your thoughts, hear some of your takeaways. I know personally I'll be doing a lot of reflecting and rereading my notes here. So thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time on the Kokomo Post Podcast.